Hi, everybody, for a special edition of Bros Banter. And today we are talking about esports, e-gaming. We are with Lee Hughes from the company React.
Boys.
Welcome. So tell us about your company, how it came all about.
React Gaming Group. I actually got involved in the company as an investor to begin with. I was very interested in the disruptive nature of just esports in general. It's taken over significantly during COVID, the household, for many people, all ages, doesn't discriminate, it seems. And, you know, it's fresh out of the gate in terms of being able to invest into it as a normal retail investor, of course, but I think over time it'll mature and become something. I think it's just going to be an investable asset in general. React is an interesting one. We have an ecosystem which is trying to cover off as many touch points as possible. We have a team, we have a betting book, and then we have a tournament platform. So we have three different assets that sit underneath our roof, and they're all great assets. I think more importantly, you know, people have rushed into the space, have been trying to work out what the model looks like, how do we make it work, how do we make it profitable. Some have succeeded, many have failed, but I think that's just because of the early immaturity of the space in general. We're a little bit more advanced and mature than most because, for example, our betting books are 5, 6, 7-year business, audited by KPMG, and it's been built from scratch by, you know, who we acquired it from, and that's Loot.bet. You know, we obviously stand out a little bit because of that. We actually have a cash flow business, which is nice. You know, it's generating revenue, and we're in a growth phase, which is really exciting.
And I think the thing is that most people don't realize how real e-gaming is. It's used to be like maybe 10 years ago, it was skirting in the peripheries, and it was, you know, you'd hear people, yeah, I'm watching these tournaments of League of Legends, or I'm watching CSGO. And it was always like a little on the fringe. But, you know, the people that were doing that were in their late 20s, you know, early 30s. And move 10 years later, they're in their 40s, and they're still doing it. But it's no longer in the fringe. It's like it's a legit thing.
It's a big business, yeah. You know, your Procter & Gamble's and your Unilever's and all of their subset of brands are all involved accessing, you know, the eyeballs because of just how big it is. Sponsorship dollars are flooding in, tournaments are increasing, professional leagues are expanding from, you know, Korea down to Australia, all the way over to Brazil, up to Canada. It seems to be getting very broadly covered now. It wouldn't surprise me if we see an ESPN channel that is specific to just esports, just like they did with PokerStars.
That's right.
You know, when poker came through and become out of the underground, and all of a sudden is now just I couldn't even tell you the numbers, but I would assume it's probably in the billions, I would say, of equitable inventory for people to get access to sponsor. Esports is similar. You can see it going that way and trending that way for sure.
Yeah, because it's something it's a little bit like gambling when like poker. Like you said, the poker's a great example because it's something that you can learn to be gifted in that. You can practice. It's not like if you want to play basketball and you know you're 5'6", chances are you're not going to make it. But esports, you know,
the name says it, esports. It's actually, because I've been in it for so long, I've followed it. I don't know how to say it, but they strived to make it a sport through time. And that's actually what it really is now, because you can actually bet on esports now. You can bet on games, which you couldn't back then. And it just validates the fact that it wanted to get to this point. And the sponsors that were there from the beginning, they're even bigger now.
Yeah, yeah. But there's one thing that you talked about, okay, Loot.bet. So that's your playbook. That's the gambling aspect of it. Now, I'm not a gambler myself. Okay. I like the idea. I'm just, honestly, I'm too chicken shit. And I will always do probably the most stupid bet. But I know he gambles on it because he actually has that rigor of following teams, doing stats, doing his homework.
For anything you can bet now, especially gaming, since it's all digitized, everything's online, stats are online, the stats are being built. So I'd say it's not probably even easier to bet on esports than it is on technical sports, where you're relying on somebody that's playing that sport. He could be having an on day, an off day. Same thing for esports, but at least you can actually quantify those results. I mean, there are sites for statistics on these guys. Sometimes it's 5 against 5. You can tell if it's the same team of 5 that are playing against another team of 5. If it's the same guys, and you look at the previous matches, because again, there are leagues. I mean, you can find those stats, and you'll be able to sort of, build your own statistics on if you, or at least your odds on if you think that team will win on that day, depending on how they performed in previous tournaments. But it's great. I mean, I like you mentioned during the pandemic, I couldn't find enough time to do. I mean, I was bored.
Yeah.
I was bored most of the time, so I just found out. I was like, okay, I can gamble on CSGO, which I hadn't played in like 10 years. I was like, okay, well, I'll look up the teams. Oh my God, there's a website that has all the teams. I can find the stats. This is great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like trading at that point.
Yeah, I agree. It's certainly captured attention over the COVID period. People were bored, like you said, I think, and we're looking for other things to do to take up that boredom. But our business is really simple. We're just trying to get as many access. We're trying to access as many touch points as we can of the space, whether that be a typical, just a peer that wants to come in and do what you did, just watch a tournament, learn about it, to engaging with your friend in a tournament that you can create yourself online and play it, or you view it, or go and participate in gambling. The professional leagues, of course, is, another interesting opportunity. But, our assets are very defined, and they're very unique in their own right, and we're taking advantage of that. And we want to hope to think that we can be in a position some stage next year where we've actually worked out the model for it to be cash flow positive, which would be great.
And you also have you got an actual team.
Yeah, Parabellum Esports is our team. They're not a professional, like, top tier team, but they certainly sit amongst some of the lower circuit rosters. And actually, we're seeing some of the kids that have been playing, and their kids graduate to stronger leagues from there. So they're kind of being used as a bit of a stepping stone, which is a good thing. Gives everyone a shot to go from, a bit more of a lower experienced environment to then getting into the big leagues eventually with a bit more experience up their belt. And they're doing a lot of good things, actually. They had a really good year this year, Parabellum in Canada. Actually, had a very good year, which is good. But again, it's content for us too, get to utilise they've got a great content strategy, so we get to utilise a lot of that to then, spread across our other assets. So we're still working all that part out at the moment. 2023 will be a big execution year for us, actually getting all the assets working together and cross-pollinating, and, like I said, just getting access to as many touch points as we can, which is important.
I tend to agree, and I think you guys have all the right tools, or at least, like you said, the right platforms to actually create something that's probably going to be bigger than anyone in Canada has ever seen it. To my opinion, at least, because you seem to have three parts of the equation that are, I'd say, valuable.
Well, let's clarify those 3 parts, because, okay, so we have React, which is, the mothership. That's where
The parent company.
the parent company, and then you have compete.gg, which is
Our tournament platform.
tournament platform. And what does it do? You can invite anybody. You can create your own.
You can create your own tournament. You can sign up and play against each other if you want on there. You can simply just sign up and view other people playing. There's going to be a lot more different functionality coming down the pipe on that one soon as well. Of course, they've been able to get API into Riot Games and a few other ones. So we're doing it legitimately. Soon enough, we'll be able to have sponsors coming on and creating their own sponsored tournaments, which is awesome. So then we can then start to bring in influencers.
That's right.
Maybe that are relating to maybe some of the sporting platform games that are out there, like your FIFAs and your NBA 2Ks, and the list goes on. And then we actually start to create quite an interesting experiential environment for people in esports, whether they just want to go on there and view, or they want to, they want to create their own content, or they want to be able to actually participate against their buddy or someone else that they don't even know from somewhere else in the world. Becomes a cool system. customer acquisition for us is the most important thing, and that typically covers off nearly everyone that wants to have any involvement in esports eventually. Yeah, and then of course we've got Loot.bet, which is our betting platform that we explained before, and then our team.
How many users do you have on Loot.bet?
We've had up to 500,000 active users at one go.
Wow.
It hasn't in its history. Yeah, it's been very well utilized, especially in parts of Europe, the Philippines, and other sort of more serious esports.
Big gaming
environments.
jurisdictions, right?
Yeah. And you know, our job now is to open up new revenue streams for it, and you know, make sure that we're compliant at the same time, and then increase that user base. The more users, the more betting handle, and the more cash flow for the business, which ultimately is what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Now, we've touched on the gaming, but a question for you: what's your background? How'd you inherit this? And at the same time, I mean, what's your background to take this to the next level? Because, like you said, you just walked into the situation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from Australia. I live in Canada now.
You poor bastard.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know, I'm comfortable here. I find it a unique startup environment for early stage business categories, let alone businesses. I had a marketing agency in Australia that was able to work across all sorts of different companies, from CPG to mining to listed, private, startup, you name it, different brands, different shapes and sizes over a long period of time before coming here and, you know, helping another startup back in the day get itself mature and acquired. You know, I saw this space as something that I wanted to get involved in, not necessarily as an executive, but certainly as an investor, which I did initially here, and you know, have helped over its short period of time whilst being in esports, or trying to create this esports ecosystem to help where required, and then got asked early in or middle of this year to maybe take over the reins as a CEO to help it take it through its next phase of its growth strategy, which that's the part that I'm more excited about, is getting that strategic framework together to actually have a business that we're seeking to achieve to take it to the next level. We're at that precipice now where we need to invest to grow, and you know, we're going through that life cycle now. We've gone through growing pains, and we continue to do that, like every startup will always go through. But you know, I certainly am trying to accelerate my learning in esports every day, because I'm not a gamer, but I certainly understand disruptive technologies and how they can be very, you know, attractive and investable as well to most investors over time.
And you also have a background as a professional athlete. So does that, like, in your role as you've been parachuted in as a CEO, you know, does your background in like being a professional athlete help you? Because
sporting culture in Australia is very similar to Canada, to be honest, and also America. You know, I think it's part of our DNA to be involved in sport in some capacity. You know, I guess I find sport as a pretty important part of life, especially how it, you know, can create discipline as a unique part of life. As whatever stage of an athlete you are, or even a participant at all in general, you know, obviously I played mostly team sports, so operating in a team environment, which esports is, of course, it's pretty important to take those values into a working environment as well. But you know, discipline at the moment for us is very important, because capital is hard to.
The markets are tough right now.
Yeah, capital is hard. It's hard to attract capital, and most of the time it can be expensive. And you know, taking that into account, you want to make sure you've got control in some respect of your actual business itself, which is why for us it's really important. We want to just create a cash flow positive business, so that if any economic condition takes place that isn't in our favour, we're just going to continue to survive because we have a thriving business. And then when things turn, sentiment turns in the market, you know, hopefully we're one of the ones that goes first with it, you know.
Mm-hmm. I tend to agree.
And it's funny because like we're looking at these emerging markets, like emerging companies, and like esports is an example. And it's something that the previous generation that are sometimes at a more financial secure space to invest, that it's a little bit out of touch for them. And I was wondering, how do you deal with that challenge of meeting a potential, investor in his 50s, and then you have to explain, okay, this esports is real. Yeah. This, have you had issues, or is it?
Yeah, it certainly has its challenges. I mean, I tend to, with this business, like to talk about the fundamental aspect of it, though, which is, important, because most smart investors, doesn't matter what category it is, if they're smart and they base themselves on fundamentals, then the metrics are still the same. A low customer acquisition cost, high average revenue per user model, which we tend to try and operate, is a nice way to start the conversation.
That's true.
And then you've obviously got to give the background behind that. But it certainly has its challenges. I mean, me in particular too. I'm still learning every day about the space, and it's hard to keep up with how fast it's moving. So yeah, I'm learning as I'm explaining most of the time too. So it's good. But in saying that, I think most people on the planet are 1 degree separated to someone that loves a video game.
That's true.
Or that's played a video game, and then of course might love sport too, and might like having a punt in Australia, as we say, on a sporting team. So then you sort of put those two environments together, and people then start to work it out.
Yeah.
Well, if people just take a minute to remember, every time after either Black Friday or Boxing Day, the lineups for when Sony or Microsoft comes out with a new console, how long people are there in line, and how long those lines are, gives you a good idea. And especially how those units, whether it be an Xbox or a PlayStation, they go on back order, and for how long. That should be a pretty good indicator that it's a growing sector. And then the only logical step to that is that you're going to want to bet. I mean, people do it every day when they're golfing, when they're playing tennis. I mean, it happens. You'll put a beer up, you'll put $5 against your buddy. And now doing that online, I mean, it's just the logical step. So, but you did mention one thing throughout the whole podcast, and this I think is the key word, is disruptive.
Yeah.
Disruptive technologies. I mean, that if I'm an investor, that's the word that catches my attention, because I mean, I think we all know when you're disruptive in a market, usually that equals success. Would you agree?
I find that disruptive categories or tech is suited for not all investors, because of course the risk profile increases. For me, I love investing in disruptive spaces, whether that be a particular niche of a biotech space or I mean, we went through the cannabis phase here in Canada, and it was new and everyone rushed in. But here, I find that there is some serious longevity in this one. You've got the Middle East coming out, or Saudi coming out recently, saying they want to be the esports mecca for the world by 2030, and released $26 billion of sovereign money to invest.
I believe it.
So, there seems to be a lot of longevity. You just got to YouTube, I don't know, a Korea esports tournament, and you'll see them 80,000 in a stadium watching kids in the middle of it play games against each other. It's
cheering them on, wear merchandise too.
Yeah, it's fanatical. So I can't see it going away anytime soon. And of course, when you start to mention brand names or conglomerates like Unilever and Procter & Gamble, and every brand that they own under the sun taking some involvement from a sponsorship participation or activating particular concepts within, it's pretty safe to say that the space is here and it's not going anywhere. So that's kind of cool with having a disruptive space that's immature, but it's pretty much here to stay.
From the cusp.
There's a lot of things that are going to take place, a lot of ancillary techs and things like that, tech companies that will take advantage and do well, I think.
Yeah. When you think about it, it's like one back the clock, because today Elon's just pretty much closing Twitter.
No, he's taking it private.
Taking it
Taking it
private.
private.
Yeah, no, I mean he's closing he's closing it, taking it off the market.
He's saving free speech.
Exactly. But you wind back the clock when Twitter started in 2005. Was it 2005? Something around that era.
Late 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, and people are like, no. That was like the cusp of social media. And everybody was expecting it to disappear. And you were 15 years later,
44 billion. That's how much Twitter went for. So
but it became here to stay, and I think that's where we can relate it to esports. It's here to stay. It's a thing, even though we're not realizing how far we will be able to go down the rabbit hole in like 10 years. Esports, I have no idea where it's going to be. It's actually kind of frightening. But I wanted to touch one thing before we sign off. You're going to Mexico.
Yep.
So what's in Mexico?
Yeah, there's a
besides Diego's family.
Yeah, there's a really big esports convention on next weekend in Mexico City. It's Latin America as a whole, so I'm assuming there's going to be everyone coming from Brazil all the way up to Mexico and getting involved. Yeah, we're going to be just there as a participant, viewing the landscape. We're wanting to get into multiple different markets as a business. Latin America we've identified is certainly one that is interesting, and it's certainly it's buzzing right now. And yeah, I want to go and see what it's all about. I haven't been able to actually physically step inside an arena to watch an esports tournament, so I'm pretty excited about being able to do that down there to see how it all works and how it all goes. But investment capital is flowing into the space, so there's going to be no doubt a lot of vendors and issuers down there that are trying to do what we're doing as well and get some market share in a new market, being Latin America. So that's what we're up to. We're doing that next week.
That's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
I think you'll be blown away. I mean, like I said, I've seen the progression from show to show, and it just gets better, bigger, more sponsors.
Yeah,
it's. You want to bring him? He'll be your fanboy. You can.
No, but I'm saying, like I said, I love the sector. I love the progression. I mean, you remember, I used to play in the basement, and I used to compete for like $5,000 for a weekend, and I had to 24-hour game for the tournament for $5,000. The prize pool now at some of these shows is like $1 million for a team of 5. I mean, Jerry Jones from the Cowboys, the owner of the Cowboys, owns a professional gaming franchise, Complexity Gaming. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. So I mean,
you're right. I remember. I remember when you were like 100 pounds lighter. And
that's right. That's right. I used to game. That's it.
Yeah.
But it.
Mom, leave me alone. I'm playing Counter-Strike.
But kids are making money out of it.
That's the difference. Is back now, if that happens, he's not just saying, "Bob, leave me alone. I'm playing Counter-Strike." It's, "Mom, leave me alone. I'm making bank."
That's right. I'm making my career. Well,
awesome.
So these are our sponsor. They're Domaine Invercio. They're in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, which is about 45 minutes away from here. And microbrewery. This is a...
It's probably 10%.
11.9%. So let's get Lee to try this out, because Domaine Invercio actually likes us to try these out, and they're always trying to get feedback. So let us know what you think, because we think the beers are awesome, but they want honest feedback. So feel free.
I mean, we're a beer drinking country down in Australia. It's got some flavour to it for sure. It's very thick. Whoa.
It's pretty good, actually.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Chipotle. Not bad at all.
It's got a little kick at the end.
It does, yeah. Not bad at all.
Well,
merci Domaine Invercio.
Before we head off, right now you guys are doing a financing. So if somebody was interested in investing in your company,
yep.
How we go about?
There's plenty of ways actually. You can just find us online if you and just contact us through our website, or as a reporting issuer on the TSX Venture. You can Google many different websites and find us, and then connect with us that way, or through you gentlemen. If there's a viewer that wants to go through the boys. hunt me down. But no, look, we're certainly welcoming new investors into the company at the moment. We feel like it's the right time. And if anyone wants to get some exposure to an esports business that's got a very attractive offering, then we'd like to think that we're one of those.
So hey, maybe there's some gamers out there that
Why not
using your platform, betting on your platform, and now they got the opportunity to invest.
Yep.
So on that note, thanks a lot, bro.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See you next time.
boys.